Hey, good morning, everybody. It is about 11:25 a.m. Pacific time on this Monday, December 8th, 2025. We are 17 days away from Christmas, and it is outside 44 degrees under cloudy skies with a tiny bit of sun trying to peek through, but it's just very cloudy. Now, before we get into this, I'd like to ask you to do me a solid favor, and that's like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. Also, guys, click on the links. If you can do me a favor, I should say, you can click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere. Outside of YouTube, you can find me at all of your favorite podcast affiliates like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Audible Music, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and to an extent, SiriusXM. You can also find me at other video outlets like rumble.com, VENMO.com, odyssey.com, and dailymotion.com. I do have a Patreon. I put my first thing up over this past weekend. It went public on YouTube yesterday evening that is. So thank you for any of you that probably did check it out on Patreon under the $3 tier. It's greatly appreciated. There will be more to come, probably more specifically during the weekends and maybe more so during the holiday vacation time. So that way I have something out for you guys 24 to 48 hours before it premieres on YouTube. You can also find it on Patreon if I'm able to, work that out the way I want to work it out. But yeah, I do have a Patreon. You can also find me at DeviantArt, deviantart.com, at BVW1979, at inkbunny.net, that's INKBUNNY.net, at BW Roses. You can also find me at furaffinity.net, furaffinity.net, at BW1979. Also, guys, you can find me on social media. You can find me at TikTok. You can find me at Blue Sky and at Twitter, aka X.com. You can also find me at Cash App and Venmo. I have one of those if you want to help support in that way. And I have a Teespring store. Link is at the bottom of the description for that. And a Fourth Wall store. Link is at the top for that. Also, guys, I have affiliated stores you might want to look into for this Christmas season, holiday season, if you will. Those stores will be listed with items that you might be interested in for yourself, for your family, your friends, or for whatever during this Christmas season. It helps by clicking on those items. It helps the store out. It helps you out gift-wise, and commission-wise, it helps me out. So if you want to go ahead and do that, it'd be greatly appreciated on all fronts. Also, guys, during this video premiere, during this live video premiere, the live chat will be open, so if you want to come on in and chime your thoughts in, if you will, in the live chat, it'd be greatly appreciated. And SuperChats will be open, so if you want to come on in with the SuperChats, if you feel like doing so, whatever you can donate would be greatly appreciated. You can do so basically during the live video premiere, along with giving your thoughts on what I have to say here. Also, guys, comments will be open on both the live video premiere and afterwards. And with that said, if you can't get here in time for the live video premiere to do a super chat, if you feel like donating, you can still do so with a super thanks, which is the little heart with a dollar sign in the middle. But with that said, guys, let's get on to the topic at hand here, shall we? All right. So, as a lot of folks have been talking about, yesterday the bracket for the 12-team playoff was revealed, and boy, did it cause a lot of controversy and a lot of chaos. Because basically what happened is, due to the fact that Notre Dame was left out of the college football playoff, due to the head-to-head matchup with Miami earlier this year, basically at the start of the year, which they lost, due to that, scenario, and basically the fact that they were head-to-head with them, back-to-back trading places in the rankings, AP, CFP, you name it. But all due to that, Miami ended up edging out Notre Dame to get in. And because of this, Notre Dame has decided, in retaliation, in protest, that they are going to opt out of any bowl games this year, despite having a 10-2 record. Now, I gave my thoughts already on this, and I basically feel, pretty much the same. You're taking away an opportunity for a lot of your young up and coming players that are coming back next year, that are not going into the transfer portal, not going into the NFL draft or anything like that, or going into other professions. You are denying these other student athletes that are on your team an opportunity to play in a bowl game, as a reward for a good season, and also the opportunity to showcase to the world why Notre Dame should have been in the playoff, from the get-go. But you're not letting that happen. You're deciding out of protest, out of anger, out of pettiness, that you're not going to, accept any invite, no matter how prestigious, how non-prestigious, how, it's cool, we can do this, it's fun, it'll have a little fun on the side kind of deal. You're not, you're not going to accept anything because you're angry. And look, I get the anger, but don't take it out on the kids. And there's a lot of folks, believe it or not, that have the inside, scoop when it comes to college sports, college football and all that. They themselves, from ESPN to CBS Sports to Fox Sports, you name it, even here on YouTube, and I'm sure on various podcasts, a lot of them have pretty much come out and said that what you're doing is punishing the kids for something that is, out of your reach, out of your control. Something that, from a rule perspective, this season, from a rule perspective, pretty much, killed your chances right off the start. Right off the start. So basically a lot of them are like, look, don't take it out on the kids. Go and basically, take your complaints to the championship committee. Take your complaints to the NCAA. Take your complaints to federal court if you want to. And get something done to where basically this wrong, as you look at it, is going to be righted. I mean, I can tell you right now, and I was thinking about this. If the championship committee wanted to right this wrong as Notre Dame looks at it, then they would basically tell Miami, yeah, you're in, but we also feel like we've wronged Notre Dame, so here's what we're going to do, and make the decision that come the 13th, which, by the way, that's when bowl season begins, believe it or not. It will be this Saturday. The 13th, add a play-in game. On the 13th or the 12th, add a play-in game. And what that means is the winner of that play-in game gets that last slot against Texas A&M. That's how it should work. That's how it should be done. In all honesty. And that's what the championship committee should think about. Even if it's on short notice, say, hey, look, you guys are going to play this Saturday. Get as much practice in as you can, because now it's not going to be just Miami versus Texas A&M, automatically. Now Miami's got to basically work their butts off in a rematch against Notre Dame, either on a neutral site at Hard Rock Stadium or South Bend. They're going to have to work their butt off again to prove that they are the rightful choice and not Notre Dame, and thus at the same time you give Notre Dame an opportunity to prove why they should be the right choice and go from there. But that's neither here nor there, and that's probably not going to happen. But I think it should be something they should look into next year, because despite the fact that the rules are going to be modified a little bit next year to where even at number 12 Notre Dame will still get in, what's even crazier is the ACC champion, or a champion of any kind, with an 8-5 record from what I'm understanding, like Duke has this year, they will get in as well. Yeah, you didn't know that, right? You didn't know about that, right? Well, basically, by watching some of ESPN and CBS Sports and all that, apparently the rule change coming into next year is not just Notre Dame, getting in if they're in the top 12 automatically, no questions asked. It's also the fact that the ACC champion, despite their record is going to get in too. So basically, as one person I think on ESPN put it, if that scenario, if that new rule change next year was in effect this year, if that new rule change that comes in next year was in effect this year, then Duke, by beating Virginia, they would be in the playoff. Yeah, an 8-5 Duke in the playoff. Yeah, they'd probably be ranked number 12. You don't know that. They'd probably get the lowest rank, seed-wise. But they would be in if the new rule for next year was in effect this year. But again, that's neither here nor there, and that's going to be next year. But point I'm getting at is, when you look at these bowl games that are out there, you shouldn't opt out of pettiness. I mean, one could understand, like if you're Kansas State and Iowa State, you're going through significant changes. You feel like you don't have enough players healthy, health-wise, to put a team together, so you don't want to take a chance. Okay, that's fine and understandable, but still, you're taking away opportunities from those that are healthy and can go. You're taking away opportunities from those on your staff that basically could step up and be interim coaches, at least for that game. You're not thinking things through. You're not thinking things through, and that's going to hurt you financially, because apparently Iowa State and Kansas State are going to get fined, or are being fined. I think, what is it, $500,000 or something like that, $5 million. I don't know what the amount is. $500,000, I think, each for declining bowl bids, because they do have winning records or bowl eligible records. That's on them. That's on them. And here's the other thing too. If I'm the NCAA, I'm the one that has the be-all, end-all, right? I'm the one that has the final say, right? The NCAA athletic committee and all that, right? Here's what I would do if I'm the NCAA. And this doesn't just go for FBS, but for all football, divisions, subdivisions, if you will. This is what I would do if I'm them. I would make a rule during the off season that goes into effect next season, that whether you like it or not, if you have a bowl eligible record and you're given an invite to a bowl game, no matter what the bowl game is, you take it, or else you'll be suspended from competing in the postseason for I don't know how many years despite your record. And that includes the playoffs. That's what I would do. If I'm the NCAA, I put that ruling into effect. That starting next season, no matter how you feel about it, you will accept a bowl bid, you will play in a bowl, because that's a reward for your athletes, your student athletes. And if you don't, not only will you be fined, but we'll suspend you from postseason play for the foreseeable future, which includes the playoffs. To me, if they put that ruling in as something of punishment if they don't accept the bid, I guarantee you a lot of the schools that opted out now, that have bowl eligible records, if they put a rule like that in, I guarantee you those schools like Kansas State and Iowa State will be like, hey, Birmingham Bowl, you need a team? Here we are. What's the other bowl game? Frisco Bowl, right? Hey, Frisco Bowl, or Xbox Bowl, whatever they're calling it now. Hey, here we are. We'll come on in. They would accept the bids. Same with Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I think they're going to get fined as well, probably a little bit more than K-State and Iowa State. But Notre Dame will be like, hey, Pop-Tarts, we don't want to go there, but you know what? We don't want to be, suspended or banned from competing for many, many years and all that, or whoever knows how long. Hey, we'll come on in. To me, if something like that was in place this year, and not in the foreseeable future, which I think it's going to be, I guarantee you a lot of these teams would have gotten in. A lot of them. And then you look, as I mentioned before, you look at these 5 and 7 teams that opted out. They opted out of the playoff, not playoff, but out of the bowl opportunities. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're opting out of a bowl opportunity when these other teams decide to opt out themselves, the ones that do have bowl eligible records? You want to opt out? And for what? What? Because you feel you don't deserve it? You don't feel like you deserve it and all that? Or you don't feel your APR, score is worthy enough? Is that it? Or are you just doing it mainly because you're done for the season? I mean, that's what some people are commenting on several Facebook group pages and social media, that some of the schools are already done with football. They've put everything away. And that might be true. That might be true, but guess what? Maybe next year, any teams that do go 5-7, and that is going to happen, there's no doubt, but any schools that do go 5-7, you know what? If I'm those schools, I'm those universities, I would keep my football equipment out and ready. I'd keep it ready, set, ready, and prepared for the possibility that I could end up going bowling just in case. So if I'm those teams, I would have just kept, even for this season, I would have kept that stuff out because of the chances I could go bowling. But it's like you look at the list of teams. You look at the list of teams here. It's like, Baylor, UCF, Kansas, 3 out of the Big 12 had an opportunity to play in a bowl game this year. Because of the opting out of Notre Dame, Kansas State, and Iowa State. They had the opportunity. They had the opportunity. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now, make sure. Yeah, they had the opportunity, but they decided not to do it. They decided not to do it. And again, let me see if I got it on Facebook still. Let me see if it's on Facebook. Obviously, it's not. I thought I had it on Facebook. It should be on here somewhere. Hold on. I know it's here somewhere. I saw it. I looked it up. Here it is. Here it is. So basically, let me bring it up here. Let me bring it up. Okay, I know you're here somewhere. But basically, okay. So the 3 teams that opted out that had winning records was Notre Dame, Kansas State, and Iowa State. We already know that. But then here are the teams 5-7 that were being considered, according to several sources, for bowl opportunities, and they turned them down. Here's the teams: Kansas, Florida State, Auburn, UCF, Baylor, Temple, and Rutgers. Are you telling me that just because you end 5-7, that you're automatically feeling like, yeah, let's just put all the football equipment and everything away for the year. We're done. Let's focus on basketball now. We're done. Are you telling me, honestly, you don't want to just leave that stuff out and everything just in case? Oh, I don't know, you get a call of, hey, we need you. Honestly, in my opinion, if I was in that position, I would say, nope, let's keep the stuff out. And if they ask why, I would say, hey, let's wait until all the bowl games are announced. And if they need anybody, hey, we'll be ready. We'll be ready if we get that call. And if we don't get that call, then put the stuff away. That's how I look at it. Put the stuff away. But as I've alluded to last night on camera, and I'll say it here again, had something like this been in play back when I was playing high school ball, and mind you, I only played 2 years, my junior and senior year. So it was a part of an agreement me and my dad had that if I got my grades up my sophomore year, I can go out, and I did. But anyway, excuse me. Had this been implemented back during those 2 seasons I played, mostly my senior season, which was my second and last season playing football period of any kind, had we had something like this implemented then for us high schoolers, to the point that when the state playoffs came around, the regional playoffs or the state playoffs or whatever it is, the state playoffs, had they well, I think it's regional. What is it? Regional? I think it's region, right? Regional playoffs to get into the state championships and all that, state playoffs or whatever. But point I'm getting at is if they had something like this, implemented back then, back then, to where they could say, hey, we don't have enough 5 and 4 teams, to fill out the last of the playoffs, so we need a 4 and 5 team, and they came calling to us in Oskaloosa, Kansas. If they came calling to us and say, hey, Oskaloosa Bears, we need you guys to fill in that last playoff spot because we don't have enough 5 and 4 teams. Do you think we're going to decline that? Do you think we would decline that? Oh, heck no. Our coach and our superintendent would be on the phone saying, hey, they would be on the phone. I'm trying to say, is our coach and our superintendent and our principal, they would all be on the phone being like, when and where. It was like, when, where, and who. That's what they'd be asking. Like, when are we playing, where are we playing, and against who? That's what they'd be asking. Because, no doubt, no doubt, and this is the honest truth, we would have accepted that. Any 4 and 5 team, back when I played, whether it was us, whether it was our rival McLeod, whether it was another rival in JCN, you name it. If we would have been given that opportunity because there was not enough 5 and 4 teams, to fill out the last of the playoffs, for the regional areas, to get to the state, had they asked a 4 and 5 team here, or back then, of course we would have jumped at it. We would have jumped at it. There's no doubt. There's no doubt we would have jumped at it. And here's what's crazy. I guarantee you if that same thing was implemented today here in California, there's a lot of teams. I don't know how much longer the football schedule is here in California compared to Kansas. I don't know how much longer. But I guarantee you, if the schedule for them was a 9-game schedule, or 10-game schedule, if you will, I guarantee you this. It's a 10-game schedule, and the teams had to at least be 5 and 5 to get in, then cool, not a problem. But if they're 4 and 6, if they're 4 and 6 and everything, but there's not enough 5 and 5s to fill out the bracket, do you not think a 4 and 6 team here in the Central Valley of California, in the Bay Area, northern part of California, the southern part of California, do you not think if somebody called them up and said, hey, we need your school to fill in this gap, do you not think they'd jump at it? Of course they would. Of course they'd jump at it. Because when are you going to get an opportunity like that in the near future? You don't know. You don't know when you're going to get an opportunity like that in the near future, because you don't know what your next season, your next season is going to look like. You don't know. You don't know. You're not sure of that, because the future is not written. It's not in stone. So of course you're going to jump at that opportunity to prove, even at your record, that maybe you are better than people thought, or people didn't expect you to be. Maybe you are, a Cinderella story just waiting to happen. And they didn't expect it. It's out of nowhere. That's what I'm trying to get at here by example. That, these 5 and 7 teams, they should basically be grateful they got the opportunity, they got the call, they got the consideration, to go play in a bowl game, to show the world why they are just as good, if not better, than some of the teams with the winning records. They have that opportunity, but to me, for the life of me, they didn't want to take. They didn't want to take it. They didn't want to take it for the life of me. I will never understand that. I will never understand why you don't want to take an opportunity like that when you are given it. Again, like I said, had they had something implemented like that back when I played high school ball, even at 4 and 5 in my second and final year in football, of course my team would have took it. I truly believe that. I truly believe we would have took it. Even if we were the lowest seeded team in the bracket, we would have had no problem taking it. And even if we lost in that first round, we could have at least said, hey, we made the playoffs. We won the postseason because they needed people. They needed a team. And even if a high school decided to opt out, if they had that option back then, which thank God they didn't, and thank God they don't now, but if they had it back then and even now, I guarantee you if a high school team opted out because of reasons, and they needed, let's say, a 4-5 team or a 4-6 team, depending on the schedule, of where high school is played. Of course, there's no doubt in my mind a high school with a 4-6 record or a 4-5 record would jump at it. Of course they would. I mean, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? I'm just saying. But to me, as I said before, and I'll say it again, you should not, you should not pass up an opportunity like this. If it's given to you, take it. And if I'm any school out there, I would make sure that until the bowls are officially done and scheduled and the teams are set, I do not, and I repeat, do not put the football stuff away just yet until I have full confirmation that everything is settled and ready to go for the postseason. Then and only then do I put it away if I know I'm not going to get that call, just in case they don't have enough teams eligible to play in bowl games. That's what I would do. But that's all I'm going to say on that. Let's get on to the next part of this video, because I know this went along a little longer than it should have. Hold on. Okay, guys, so let's start this off here by talking about some bowl games now, shall we? Now that I got that out of my system. So let's talk about the bowl games starting out this Saturday. Yes, we have a couple of bowl games this Saturday to start us out with, along with the Army and Navy game. Which I think is probably one of the actually it's not the earliest, but it is kind of weird to have a couple of bowl games on the same day, as Army Navy. I mean, I remember basically Army Navy used to have the whole day to themselves and everything. They still do. They're kind of like the main event, if you will. But yeah, they're now putting the bowl games in there because of the CFP and everything in the first round. They have to dedicate a Saturday to that, which is next Saturday. But anyway, let's talk about the bowl games here. Let's talk about the first one. It's the Celebration Bowl. This will be on ABC. This will be at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And it will be South Carolina State versus Prairie View A&M. Now, basically what this is, essentially, and I say it with all due respect, no offense, all due respect, no offense. I say it with all due respect, no offense. This is basically the Black College National Championship. That's what it is. So again, I say that with all due respect, no offense, all due respect, no offense, I should say. I say that, with all respect, all due respect, no offense. But yeah, basically, it is the Celebration Bowl. It is, like I said, at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. It's South Carolina State against Prairie View A&M. And like I said, it's the Black College National Championship, if you will. It's HBCU versus the MEAC, the MEAC, if you will. No, that's not the. No, is it the? Well, hold on. It's the SWAC. It's what it is. It's the SWAC versus the MEAC. That's what it is. Excuse me. I do apologize for that, and I didn't mean to miscorrect there. I say that with all due respect, no offense. I know I'm saying that a lot here, but I honestly mean it. I honestly mean it and everything. And I do apologize if I sound like I'm a little distracted. Like I said, I just had to get what I said off my chest in the first part of this video. But also the fact it's been a very eventful day. Basically, woke up, got myself some coffee, got myself, together a little bit and everything somewhat. And then this morning went out to go check the mail and noticed that there was a couple of eggs basically broken on our truck and everything, as well as on our driveway, so I had to clean that up. And then we had our neighbor asking us about some cars that are not ours that have been parked in the road or parked on the side for quite some time, and I think it's kind of like becoming annoying for him and his family and all that, because they have to park somewhere as well. So I do apologize if I sound a little distracted because of all of that. And also, I got a phone call earlier. It's the phone call that I normally get every day and all that. And for some of you that have followed me for 17 years, a lot of you that is, and I thank you for it. You know what that means. But anyway, like I said, it's the SWAC, the SWAC versus the MEAC, MEAC. In the Celebration Bowl, like I said, South Carolina State and Prairie View A&M on ABC at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And then that's followed basically at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern by the LA Bowl. The LA Bowl, which will be Boise State and Washington. Now you might ask yourself, well, wait a minute. Washington's a Big Ten team. How are they getting into a game that's Pac-12? Well, here's how it goes down. And this is apparently going to probably come to an end next season. But because of the fact that they still have affiliated ties to the Pac-12, due to the fact that they suddenly, bolted from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, because they still have those ties at least until next year. Teams that were Pac-12, I should say, were Pac-12, but are now Big Ten, Big 12, and all that, and ACC, if you will. Those teams are, formerly of the Pac-12, are eligible for Pac-12 representation. So in other words, basically, like with one of the bowls coming up from Hawaii, you have an ACC team that used to be Pac-12. Because of that, they're still kind of eligible, at least I could say, until next season to represent the Pac-12, even though they're part of the ACC. And that kind of goes the same here with Washington. But anyway, like I said, Boise State takes on Washington. That's also on ABC at 5 a.m. Pacific. Oh, not 5 a.m., but 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's going to be from SoFi Stadium in Inglewood. So those are the first two bowl games, along with the Army-Navy game, which will be on CBS. Now, with that said, let's get on to the next bowl game, which will be on Tuesday, December 16th. That is the Salute to Veterans Bowl. That's the, salute to, hold on for a second. Alright, sorry about that, folks. The noon whistle just went off here in Newman. That's why I was hearing some dogs howling all of a sudden. I thought it was the cat that was walking away. The cat kind of started walking real fast when she heard that. But anyway, like I said, the next bowl game is Tuesday, December 16th, a week from tomorrow. It is the Salute to Veterans Bowl. It is from Montgomery, Alabama, from the Crampton Bowl, as it's called. It'll be Troy versus Jacksonville State. That'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Now you might ask yourself, well, wait a minute. Isn't Alabama on the East Coast? Yes, they are. And you're probably asking yourself, so wait a minute, they're going to do a 9 p.m. bowl game? Yeah, apparently. But I'm pretty sure a lot of these places, will give the areas, the local schools, like elementary, middle school, and high school, they'll probably give them the day off and all that because some of them might be attending here. So we'll see what happens. But yes, the Salute to Veterans Bowl, Troy versus Jacksonville State, like I said, at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on ESPN, and that is on Tuesday, December 16th, a week from tomorrow. Then a week from this Wednesday, on December 17th, we have two bowl games that will be happening. We have two bowl games. We have the Cure Bowl, and that is going to be Old Dominion, It's going to be Old Dominion versus South Florida. That'll be at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, from Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. That's the Cure Bowl. That's Old Dominion versus South Florida at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on ESPN from Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. That's followed by the 68 Ventures. That's followed by the 68 Ventures Bowl. 68 Ventures Bowl. It's followed by that, and that game will be at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. The 68 Ventures Bowl. That'll be between Louisiana and newly FBS team Delaware. Now, what's interesting about this is Delaware and another team I'm going to talk about this year, that's in a bowl game. Delaware and the other team are in the first year of FBS FBS existence. Delaware is in the first year as part of Conference USA, I believe, and the same with the other team. But here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting, though. Okay, according to the rules, initially, according to the rules, no, no newly, um, what's the word I'm looking for? No newly admitted FBS team in football, basketball, whatever. No newly, added team to an FBS conference or independence is eligible initially for a bowl game until the second year. They are not eligible for a bowl game till the second year, despite having a 6-6 record or a winning record. They're not eligible. Because they just got brought up, so they still need a year to, I guess you could say, wipe the FCS stench, as they would call it, or people would look at it, the FCS stench off of them and get a good understanding what the FBS is about. Well, because of the fact that, as I said earlier, there was not enough 6-6 teams, which is why they called upon some 5-7 teams. Because there was not enough 6-6 teams, outside of what should have been outside of the norm. That along with the 5-7 teams that did accept bowl bids, to fill those spots, it also opened the door for the expanded teams, that made the jump to FBS this year, and thus in the first year of eligibility, is able to go out and be in a bowl game because of the winning record. Because of the winning record, they're able to be in a bowl game. So that is why with the 68 Ventures Bowl, Louisiana is going to be taking on Delaware. So Delaware is getting in to the 68 Ventures Bowl because there was not enough 6-6 teams to be bowl eligible. That is why, if you will. So yeah, that's going to be at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and that's going to be from Hancock Whitney Stadium in Mobile, Alabama. Now, on Thursday, December 18th, a week from Thursday, we have the Xbox Bowl. Now, the reason for the Xbox Bowl's existence is because they decided they're no longer going to do the Bahamas Bowl from the Bahamas in Nassau Stadium. They're not going to do it anymore. I don't know why. I don't know if maybe it was poor attendance or something. I don't know. But anyway, instead, they're going to have the Xbox Bowl. It's going to be from the Ford Center in Frisco, Texas. So it's not going to be outdoors. It's going to be indoors. It's going to be basically in the practice facility, the indoor practice facility of the Dallas Cowboys. That's right. The indoor practice facility of the Dallas Cowboys Ford Center in Frisco, Texas is going to host the Xbox Bowl. So Xbox, despite the negative and controversial and unknown tribulation that they're going through right now, they obviously through Microsoft is sponsoring a bowl game. So the Xbox Bowl, which will be on Thursday, December 18th, a week from Thursday, it'll be Arkansas State taking on the other, first year FBS team that should be waiting until next year, but because of the lack of 6-6 teams, was able to get in this year, and that is Missouri State. That's right, Missouri State, basically always known for being FCS, being in the FCS tournaments and all that, basically part of the Ohio Valley Conference, is now basically in the first year with Conference USA. I think it's Conference USA will be taking on Arkansas State in the Xbox Bowl from the Ford Center, like I said, the indoor facilities of the practice facilities, that is, of the Dallas Cowboys. That game will be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and it will be seen on ESPN2. Yeah, so if you want to see the game, if you're interested in it, to see how it looks, on the playing field of a practice facility like the Dallas Cowboy one, then you can tune into ESPN2 to see that, and I'm sure you'll be able to tune into the ESPN app as well to see it. But yeah, that's going to be a week from Thursday, December 18th, and that'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific from the Ford Center in Frisco, Texas. Then, a week from Friday, on December 19th, this is where it gets interesting because it's going to have two games. The first game will be the Myrtle Beach Bowl. The Myrtle Beach Bowl. It'll be the Conference USA champions, Kennesaw State versus Western Michigan. That's right, Kennesaw State in their second year in the FBS level. I wasn't even aware it was the second year. That's because I didn't even pay attention to the fact that they were in it last year. Who knew? But anyway, in the second year, that not only did they win the Conference USA title, but they are heading as the Conference USA champions to the Myrtle Beach Bowl. They will take on Western Michigan. That game will be at 11 a.m. Eastern, which will make it 8 a.m. Pacific, and that will be from Brooks Stadium in Conway, South Carolina. So I guess the Myrtle Beach Bowl is, essentially the, I guess you could say the automatic bowl for the Conference USA team. I'm assuming. But we'll see. We'll see. It all depends too. If Kennesaw State next year, improves on this year and goes, let's say, undefeated, they could get into, the CFP. Who knows? But yeah, Kennesaw State takes on Western Michigan in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. That game will be at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on ESPN from Brooks Stadium in Conway, South Carolina. And that's on December 19th. Also on December 19th, we have the Gasparilla Bowl. The Gasparilla Bowl, easy for me to say. That will be, that will be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and that would make it about, 2:30, 1:30, 12:30, so about 11:30 a.m. Yeah, 11:30 a.m. The Gasparilla Bowl, will be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. It'll be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. It'll be Memphis taking on North Carolina State. So North Carolina State is bowl eligible. They did have a bowl eligible record. So did Memphis. So they are in. If you will. And that'll be the Gasparilla Bowl from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa on ESPN at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. And then, to close out the day, if you will, to close out that day, we will have our first of the college football playoffs, first round games, and that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That'll be Oklahoma hosting Alabama. And that'll be, of course, in Norman, Oklahoma at Memorial Stadium on ESPN and ABC. So yeah, closing out December 19th, a week from Friday, will be the college football playoff first round game, the first of the first round games, Oklahoma versus Alabama. Then on the 20th, it will be all college football first round games, college football playoff first round games. It'll be on December 20th at 12 p.m. Pacific. At 12 p.m. Not Pacific, but 12 p.m. Eastern. At 12 p.m. Eastern, if you will, 9 a.m. Pacific. It will be number 7 Texas A&M hosting number 10 Miami, Florida, Miami U, if you will, and that'll be at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on ESPN and ABC from Kyle Field and College Station. That's the first one. Then the second game will be at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, and it will be on TNT and HBO Max. It'll be Ole Miss in Tulane, and that'll be from that'll be from Vaught Hemingway Stadium in Oxford, Mississippi. Then the other one to close out that day of the first round games will be number 5 Oregon against James Madison, and that'll be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific on TNT and HBO Max. That'll be from Eugene, Oregon. That'll be from Enzun Stadium in Eugene, Oregon. And that's the first, that's the last of the first round games on December 20th. So, anyway, after that, on December 22nd, we only have one bowl game because we have Monday Night Football that day as well. But on December 22nd, we have the famous Idaho Bowl, Idaho Potato Bowl. We have Washington State taking on Utah State. So Washington State, I think, did get a winning record, so they are bowl eligible. That'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific from Albertsons Stadium in Boise, Idaho. Then on Tuesday, December 23rd, we have 3 bowl games. We have the Boca Raton Bowl, at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on ESPN from the Fragile Credit Union Stadium in Boca Raton, Florida. It'll be Louisville taking on Toledo, and that's at 2 p.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. 2 p.m. Eastern, I should say, 11 a.m. Pacific. Excuse me. Then that's followed at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, by the New Orleans Bowl. It'll be Western Kentucky taking on an old favorite of the New Orleans Bowl, Southern Miss. That's right, Southern Miss, in my opinion, anytime they've been bowl eligible, unless they've had a really good season, but unless they had a really good season, they could get them maybe considered for a higher tier bowl, or maybe in this case a CFP. Southern Miss has always been looked at as basically New Orleans Bowl bound. That always is going to end up as their destination. So yeah, Western Kentucky taking on Southern Miss in the New Orleans Bowl from the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. That'll be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. Then to wrap up the December 23rd day of bowl games, we have the Frisco Bowl, also from the Ford Center at the Star. So I don't know if that's indoors or outdoors. I don't know why they put the Star on this one and not when they talked about the Xbox Bowl. I don't know. We'll see. But here, the Frisco Bowl will be UNLV versus Ohio, and that'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific from the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco, Texas. Then on Christmas Eve, we have the Hawaii Bowl, and that will be Cal, again, as I mentioned earlier. This is the ACC team that got in because of the former ties to the Pac-12. We have Cal taking on Hawaii from the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex in Honolulu. So basically, it's a home game for Hawaii. And if there's one criticism I will give this kind of bowl situation, is basically, the fact that they essentially will tie, a school to a bowl game that literally their name is in or they have connections to. So I think they need to change it up, because essentially what you're doing here is you're making Cal play an away game and Hawaii's playing the home game. So I think they need to fix that a little bit. Alright, continuing on. On December 26th, the day after Christmas, we have the Game Above Sports Bowl, formerly by a lot of names, Motor City Bowl, Little Caesars Bowl, so on and so forth. But we now have it known as the Game Above Sports Bowl at 1 p.m. Eastern. That will be about, 12, 11, 10, 9 a.m. 9 a.m. Ow. 9 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. On ESPN, we have the Game Above Sports Bowl, and it will be Central Michigan, basically a home game for them, against Northwestern. So that's going to be good. And that'll be from Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. Then following that at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, we have the Rate Bowl, or the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. It's New Mexico versus Minnesota. And that's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, and that is from Chase Field in Phoenix, Arizona. Then we have, following that, the First Responders Bowl at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on ESPN from the Gerald J. Ford Stadium in Dallas, Texas. We have FIU, Florida International, taking on Texas San Antonio. So UTSA against FIU. And that's pretty much, even though it's Dallas, might be somewhat of a home game for San Antonio, or Texas San Antonio, that is. Then, on December 27th, on Saturday, December 27th, we've got a lot of bowl games because, of course, it's Saturday and that's college football day. We got a lot of bowl games. So we start off with the Military Bowl. The Military Bowl at 11 a.m. Eastern. That'll be 8 a.m. Pacific on ESPN from the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis, Maryland. It'll be Pitt versus East Carolina. That's followed an hour later on ABC by the Pinstripe Bowl. The Pinstripe Bowl will be at 12 p.m. Pacific. Not Pacific, but 12 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, from Yankee Stadium. It'll be Clemson against Penn State. Then, following that, on ESPN, we have the Fenway Bowl at 2:15 p.m. Eastern, which will make it about 11:15 a.m. Pacific, 2:15 p.m. Eastern, 11:15 a.m. Pacific. We have the Fenway Bowl. It'll be UConn taking on Army. And that will be from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts. Then that's followed about, I would say, 75 minutes later by the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Yes, the Pop-Tarts Bowl will be number 12 BYU against number 22 Georgia Tech. That'll be at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific from Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. Now, what's interesting about this is the reason Georgia Tech is in, representing the ACC at number 22, is because a lot of people projected Notre Dame would have been in this game instead, but Notre Dame, of course, opted out. And why would you want to opt out, potentially winning the game and not only proving that you should have been in the playoff, but also snacking on a big old Pop-Tart? Why would you miss out on that? I'm just saying. Okay, so following that, an hour later, on the CW network, we have the Arizona Bowl. We have Miami of Ohio taking on Fresno State. And that'll be at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific from Arizona Stadium in Tucson, Arizona. And I guarantee you right now, there's a lot of folks here in the Central Valley that's going to be pulling for Fresno State. Then, here's what's interesting. New Mexico Bowl. The New Mexico Bowl will be at 5:45 p.m. Eastern, 2:45 p.m. Pacific, ESPN, from University Stadium in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It'll be San Diego State against UNT, and that is North Texas. That's right. North Texas went from a potential playoff berth, and I say it with all due respect, no offense, went from a potential playoff berth to the New Mexico Bowl. And again, I say that with all due respect, no offense, but it's just, weird. Like, instead of going to something like, let's say, some of the bowl games I'm going to bring up right now, instead of going to one of them, instead they get basically catapulted all the way over to the New Mexico Bowl instead. Which, again, nothing against that. You still, you're having an opportunity to do what some teams don't want to do, and that's prove, hey, we're still a good team, and you get to do it against San Diego State. So that's going to be cool. Then, that's followed at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific on ABC by the Gator Bowl, Missouri taking on Virginia. So Virginia still gets a pretty much, I would say prestigious bowl game, if you will. They still get to play in something prestigious, known for mostly being New Year's Day. But in this case, it's going to be on the 27th of December. So yeah, the Gator Bowl, Virginia taking on Missouri. And then we close out December 27th with the Texas Bowl. It'll be LSU taking on Houston from NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. That'll be at 9:15 p.m. Eastern, 6:15 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. That's practically a home game for Houston. Even though they don't play the home games in NRG Stadium, it's pretty much a home game because you can't tell me the Houston Cougar crowd ain't going to be packing that place out. Then, on December 29th, we only have one bowl game, and this one basically was the last bowl game to be officially made. Because even though they had one team in there already, they had yet to get another team because of all the chaos going on. So the Birmingham Bowl, which will be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, from Protective Stadium. Oh yes, that's what it's called. It's called Protective Stadium in Birmingham, Alabama. It'll be Georgia Southern and Appalachian State. And if I am correct here, let me look this up real quickly. And everything. Let me see. Hold on. If I can get this. Hold on, I'm just gonna. Let me see. Let me see here. Here we go. Okay, yeah. Appalachian State, known as App State, is a member of the Sun Belt. And let's see. I think Georgia Southern is the same way, right? Let me see. I want to make sure because this is going to be unique in a way because okay. And yep. Yep, they are. So that's going to be interesting because again, thanks to the chaos that's been turned my thing off. I didn't want to do that. But thanks to the chaos that's been going on, apparently they needed teams to fill out the gaps. So the Birmingham Bowl is basically going to be a Southern Belt Conference game. That's how whacked out things have gotten this year. That's how whacked out things have gotten to the point that now, basically you have to call upon teams not just with a 5-7 record, if you will, or even teams that are in the first year of FBS, to fill in the gaps. But now you also have to call upon teams in the same conference. Now I'm not saying that's nothing new, if you will, because heck, we've seen how that's been with the playoff system, for the past decade or so. We've seen that. I mean, how many times has the national championship ended with teams in the same conference? I'm just saying. But yeah, the Birmingham Bowl at 2 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, on ESPN from Protective Stadium in Birmingham, Alabama, is going to be a all Sun Belt Conference bowl game. That is crazy. But again, that's the situation we're in right now. That's the situation we're in. Okay, so following that, on Tuesday, December 30th, we have the Independence Bowl. It'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on ESPN. It'll be Coastal Carolina and Louisiana Tech. Now, what's interesting about this is normally the Independence Bowl would be, more known for, teams like, let's say, from the Big 12, from the ACC, from the Big 10, the SEC. I think this is the first time that we've had teams from, and I say it with all due respect, no offense, from the lower tier, from the mid to lower tier FBS schools, being represented in it. So that's kind of a big deal when you think about it. A bowl game that's mostly been known, like I said, for SEC and Big 12 matchups, or SEC Big 10 matchups, ACC, you name it. Now is now going to be a game represented by the Sun Belt and Conference USA. So again, that's kind of a big deal, no matter how you look at it. Kind of a big deal. Then that's followed at 5:30 p.m., 2:30 p.m. Pacific. 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. on ESPN. That's followed by the Music City Bowl from Nashville, Tennessee, and that's going to be Tennessee and Illinois. Then we close out the December 30th day of games, from San Antonio, Texas. That's going to be number 16 USC, Southern Cal, USC, taking on TCU. That'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, also on ESPN from the Alamo Dome. Then on New Year's Eve, here's where it gets interesting. We have the Wellercrest Bowl. The Wellercrest Bowl will be at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. 9 a.m. Pacific, and all that. 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. And did I say something? Did I say one bowl game that was on at 1 p.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern was 9 a.m.? I should have said 10, right? Yeah, that was the Game Above Bowl. What I should have said is the Game Above Bowl is 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Let me correct myself on that. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, what am I, New Year's Eve? Okay. So the Wellercrest Bowl at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific will be number 23 Iowa versus number 14 Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt was actually one of the teams that had an argument of, hey, let us into the playoff. And I'll guarantee you this, if there were play-in games, like we've seen with the NCAA basketball tournament, which I think we might be getting, instead of a 16-field team, or a 16-field team, I should say, if there were play-in games, I guarantee you Vanderbilt would have been in a play-in game. But yeah, that's at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, the Wellercrest Bowl, number 23 Iowa against number 14 Vanderbilt. Then on CBS at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, it'll be the Sun Bowl, Arizona State taking on Duke. Arizona State, of course, is Big 12, but because of their ties formerly with the Pac-12, that's why they're in. And Duke, being the ACC champions? Oh my goodness. What a drop. What a drop. Duke, honestly, in my opinion, if there's any team, if there is any team, period, that should have opted out of a bowl game, it should have been the ACC champions. Because if you feel like, hey, we should be in the playoff, then you would have a reason. But hey, next year they got a shot. Even if they ended up with the same schedule next year, or the same record, I should say, next year, they have a good shot at getting in. If history repeats itself. But yeah, it's going to be Arizona State and Duke in the Sun Bowl, from the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas, at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on CBS. And that being in El Paso, being close to Arizona, you're probably going to have, a very vocal Arizona State home support there. Then that's followed an hour later at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific on ABC by the Citrus Bowl. That'll be basically number 13 Texas taking on number 18 Michigan. So that's going to be good. And that'll be from Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. I was just scratching my head there for a second if you heard anything. And then we close out that day of bowl games with the Las Vegas Bowl. That'll be, the day of bowl games isn't over initially, but, you get what I'm saying. Let me correct myself. We continue, not close out, continue that day of bowl games, if not bowl-related games, with the Las Vegas Bowl. It'll be Nebraska taking on number 15 Utah from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada, at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. Then we close out that day of bowl games with the Cotton Bowl. Again, bowl-related. It's still a bowl game, but it's part of the college football playoff. The college football playoff quarterfinal in the Cotton Bowl. We have in the Cotton Bowl, it'll be number 2 Ohio State taking on the winner of Texas A&M and Miami, and that'll be from AT&T Stadium, AT&T Stadium, if you will, in Arlington, Texas. And if I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan, if I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan, I'm telling you right now, you better cheer for Miami to win in College Station, because if Texas A&M wins, you basically might as well have your Buckeyes put on those white uniforms and be the visitor, because basically what's going to happen is they're going to be playing an away game against Texas A&M if they face the Aggies. So pray you get Miami instead. Then on New Year's Day, Thursday, January 1st, we will start off the day at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, from Miami, Florida, at the Orange Bowl. It'll be Texas Tech taking on the winner of Oregon and James Madison. That's followed at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, by the Rose Bowl, another quarterfinal, and that'll be number 1 Indiana taking on either Oklahoma or Alabama. And then we close out the New Year's Day bowl games, quarterfinal games, if you will, with the Sugar Bowl, and that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That'll be number 3 Georgia taking on the winner of number 6, taking on the winner, I should say, of Ole Miss and Tulane. And that'll close out the day of New Year's Day games. Then we get into the post New Year's Day games, or still technically New Year's Day games, because it's in the new year and pretty much it's New Year's weekend, New Year's weekend, if you will. So basically continuing on, and here's where things get interesting. Continuing on, we have the Armed Forces Bowl on January 2nd. That is the Armed Forces Bowl. Texas State, taking on 5-7 Rice. That's right, 5-7 Rice is going to be playing in a bowl game in 2026. They're going to start off the new year in a bowl game in 2026 with a 5-7 record, all because, ladies and gentlemen, all because. Hold on for a second, guys. Oh, sorry, I thought I heard something, but anyway, getting back on track here. Rice at 5-7 is going to be playing in a bowl game in 2026. It's going to be playing in essentially the 4th bowl game of the new year. They're going to be playing in the 4th bowl game of the new year, the Armed Forces Bowl, from Armand G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth, Texas, at 1 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Not 9 a.m., but 10 a.m. I should say, 10 a.m. Pacific, against Texas State. And all because, like I said, some teams decided to opt out, of the bowl eligibility opportunities. So yeah, kind of crazy, but what are you going to do? Then that's followed at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, by the Liberty Bowl. It'll be Navy taking on Cincinnati. So yeah, both Army and Navy, who will be facing each other this Saturday in the Army-Navy game, are both eligible for bowl games and will be playing in bowl games, if you will, potentially, basically in front of nationwide audiences, probably a lot bigger than they expected. Army in Army in the Fenway, Navy, in the Liberty. So pretty cool. And that's going to be from 7. Hold on for a sec. And that's going to be from Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium in Memphis, Tennessee. Like I said, at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Then that's going to be followed by the Duke's Mayo Bowl. And again, we have another 5-7 team in Mississippi State taking on Wake Forest, and that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, from Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you're Mississippi State and you saw, hey, we need you, of course, they're one of the schools that said, yeah, we'll jump at it. We'll jump at it. So I'll give them respect for that. Then we close out the January 2nd day of games with the Holiday Bowl from San Diego, from Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego, California, at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. It'll be Arizona taking on SMU. So there you go. And that closes out the January 2nd day of games. Then, on January 8th, we only have one bowl game, and that is the semifinal. That is the Fiesta Bowl. We don't know what teams are going to be in there yet, but that's the Fiesta Bowl. I think it's projected, if I am right here, let me go back to the quarterfinals here. I think it is projected, correct me if I'm wrong, it is projected that basically we are looking at Ohio State, Texas A&M, or Miami taking on either Indiana, Oklahoma, or Alabama. That would be the Fiesta Bowl. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have to look at it again. Then, on January 9th, we have the other semifinal, which is the Peach Bowl, which, if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if I'm right, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, would be Texas Tech, Oregon, or James Madison against Georgia, Ole Miss, or Tulane. That would be the Peach Bowl from Atlanta, Georgia, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And the Fiesta Bowl the day before would be from State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. Then, January 19th, we close out the entire college football season for this year with the national championship from Miami, Florida. But yeah, that's pretty much, ladies and gentlemen, the entire bowl landscape for this year. That's the entire bowl landscape, I should say, for this year. Very, very interesting, very, very intriguing. And, honestly, I will say this. This has to be probably one of the most controversial and talked about college football, seasons, if not postseasons, I've ever seen and ever seen and ever heard of, I should say. It's got to be one of the more talked about and controversial ones, in a long time, if not period. Because not only do you have a bracket system that needs to be fixed, it needs to have something done, either by abolishing it completely and going back to the old BCS style of things, or going back to how the thing was done originally back in 2014 up until recently, to where now instead, you could just have a couple, of bowl games, with your top 4 teams, and then they meet in the national championship, which I think makes sense in my opinion. I think that's a lot easier to digest, because at least there's not, lack of confusion there. There's lack of confusion there. Either it goes back to something like that, it goes back to the BCS style of doing things, or they might just expand to 16 teams, or they might just do a couple of play-in games, just like the NCAA does. The NCAA has what's known as the first 4, right? They have the final 4, they have the first 4. The first 4 are basically play-in games to see who gets in the actual 64-team tournament. To see who becomes either a victim of number 1 or number 2, and who has a chance to have a decent, playable, if not surprisingly good game against the number 10 or number 8. So they have those kind of things, and that actually helps out. That actually works out very well, because you have teams that feel they should be in the tournament right away automatically, trying to prove themselves in front of the national audience. So to me, honestly, a play-in situation, adding a play-in situation like that to the college football playoff would be good. So that way, you could, let's say, look at, Notre Dame and Miami. Miami, is facing Texas A&M in the first round, right? A play-in game would have been perfect. Put Miami against Notre Dame in a rematch from South Bend or from Miami, wherever, and let the winner of that face Texas A&M. It would have made more sense. Much more sense, in my opinion. Much more sense, in my opinion. The same with James Madison and Tulane. In Texas, or whoever else felt like they got snubbed. James Madison taking on Tulane. The winner of that goes on and faces Ole Miss, or goes on and faces Oregon. And then you open the door for, maybe another team that go in there who feels like they deserve it. Like, let's say a Duke, whether you like the record or not, or let's say a Kennesaw State. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But yeah, basically they got to do something. Either expand, either abolish it, either go back to the way it was when it first started back in 2014, either go back to the BCS way of things, or add in the playing games. The playing games, I think, might be the best solution. But, outside of that, again, this has to be one of the craziest years I've ever seen. One of the craziest years. I mean, I can understand back when COVID hit. I can understand that basically not a lot of schools wanted to put their players in danger. And they said, no, we can't do it. We're going to opt out this year. And that opened the door. The NCAA decided to be charitable and say, any team out there that wants to play in a bowl game, no matter what your record is, come on down. You're all welcome. You're all welcome. And back then, that was an exception because of the situation. But I guess they realized, hey, that worked, and decided to adopt that, but the only catch is the APR. And even that, though, it doesn't look like it's working, because a lot of people, according to Google itself, have basically said that schools like Kansas and even what's the other team? Kansas and Baylor. Some of the APRs are not good. But yet they're getting relied on because of the lack of 6-6 teams, or bowl eligible teams, or teams that are opting out. So yeah, it's just one of those situations to where it's like, whew, this whole tournament thing, as far as FBS goes, maybe wasn't the best idea. And the only way I think it could be fixed is, like I said, either go back to the BCS style things, either go back to the way it started back in 2014, or just add in a play-in game and be done with it. Or expansion. But I think a play-in game is probably the best direction for them to go in. Either that or go back to the style of what it was back in 2014. But anyway, though, guys, that's all I'm going to say. Let me know what your thoughts are as I check the time here and all that. Let me know what your thoughts are on this entire situation. How do you feel about it? When it comes to 5 and 7 teams getting in, do you think if they're given the opportunity, they should just take it because you never know when you'll get it again? Let me know what your thoughts are and all that. What do you think needs to be fixed as far as the playoff goes and all that? Do you think they should go back to the BCS style things? They should go back to how it was originally, started in 2014, or do you think maybe they should add in a play-in game or just expand? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section if you haven't already given them in the live chat. And until next time, guys, like I said at the beginning, do me all the solid favors, and that's like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video, as well as click on the link in the description to find my content elsewhere and to support me elsewhere. It'd be greatly appreciated. And also click on the links to the affiliated stores. It helps you out for Christmas gift shopping, as well as it helps the stores out and helps me out with the commissions. But guys, give me your thoughts. Love to hear from each and every one of you. Also, the Super Thanks will be open in just a bit as soon as the premiere is over. But give me your thoughts, and until then, I am out.